All right, so we're back for another installment of Serial Killer Whisperer with Laura Brand, criminologist extraordinaire, and she just got back in her possession some more Bittaker tapes. So we're going to be probably cranking out and going through some of that. Today we have about 20 minutes worth of tapes, and Laura, why don't you just kind of set these up and tell us when these recordings were done and what was your intention when you were going to talk to him about that? Because one of them, you're really hitting him hard on something.
Yeah.
And the other one, you're just you really want to kind of extract like human information from him. Talk about love. You talk about girlfriends. And so kind of set up, let's talk about why what's going on with those recordings, when you did them, and what was your goal?
Well, the first tape you're going to hear is a later tape, and I think you're going to hear a difference of how I'm talking to him. And, I'm kind of hitting him hard with the questions, saying, it doesn't make sense. It's kind of ridiculous. And the reason I'm going at him this way is because in the cage, he's telling me one thing, but then he gets on the audio recording, he's saying a different story. And you're going to hear me say Larry at one point, because I know he's lying, because he told me something different in the cage. And you're going to hear him go, Laura. It was played on the Toolbox Killer, but the audio recording you hear on the Toolbox Killer was not this one. It was kind of meshed up. But that's why you hear me like kind of go at him saying, Larry, come on. But you'll hear it in the tape. Yeah, because he's lying, and I'm kind of throwing it back at him like, why are you doing this on tape? Because you said something different in the cage.
Interesting. Did that happen a lot?
Yeah. With Larry, yeah.
Why is that?
It was funny because it's like in the cage, I would meet a lion, and then on tape, it was like I'm meeting a lamb. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be the perfect description for Larry is like, yeah, I'm meeting a lion in the cage, but I'm meeting a lamb on tape when we're recording. And the tape actually stops because I actually hang up the phone because I was so frustrated with him.
That's why it's a short recording. It's only like 5 minutes long.
Yeah, I cut the tape. I was just so fed up with what the bullshit he was spewing, pretty much.
Yeah.
Why is he a lamb on the recording rather than being a lamb in the cage?
Well, like I said before, like he was always, scared to be perceived as a monster. He wanted to be perceived as, like a good guy. Right. I guess was his like perception. Like as delusional as it sounds, that was his rational thinking of when I questioned him about this. Like, why are you lying on tape? Why are you pretending to be this lamb when you're a different person in the cage? And that was his biggest concern. So
because he knows he's being recorded. He knows other people are going to hear this, and he wants to maintain this facade that he's a good guy.
Right.
Yeah. Right. This is kind of like legacy. He knows it's going to live beyond him, and he's curating this conversation.
And you'll hear me say in the tape, like, doesn't Roy sound ridiculous? But I'm really speaking to him. I'm saying, don't you sound ridiculous saying this back to me? Is what I'm implying back to him, which you'll see in the tape. Yeah.
Wow. That must have got really frustrating because it
was,
I mean, we've had situations like that where, we have interview subjects, just regular people, they'll tell us these outlandish stories, when they're not mic'd up and a camera in their face.
Right.
And then as soon as you put the camera in their face and you start pressing recording, all of a sudden their tone changes.
Yeah.
The mask goes on, and they're very more cautious with their words. And, they're not speaking as unfiltered as they normally would as if they're not being recorded. And I think there's like a term for that, isn't there? There's like a psychological term for that,
There probably is, but yeah.
It's some sort of effect. I can't remember what it is. But it's interesting. So that must have been really frustrating with you, because you've spent at this point. How many times have you met with him? Because this is towards the end. Years at this point when he's putting this mask on in the audio recording, and I'm just frustrated at this point. I'm just like, you sound ridiculous, or I'm using a mask of Norris to be like, this sounds ridiculous. What you're stating is ridiculous. Yeah. And you'll hear it. It comes out in the frustration. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's play it, and here we go.
disconnect at this time.
All right. Hey.
Okay.
All right. So here's my point. To say like you guys going up the mountain and nothing was planned. Here's my whole thing. You know how Roy, tells people like, oh, I was on drugs. I had no memory of the murders. Yes, he led the police to the bodies of the victims. Like, do you hear like how ridiculous he sounds to people?
Well, that's his story,
I know, but like,
maybe, I don't know.
do you think it's ridiculous? Yes or no? Do you think it is?
Say that again?
Do you think it's ridiculous?
No, I know it's not true. It might make a decent defense if he's going to do it,
I know, but I'm saying as a person, hearing somebody say, oh, I was on drugs the whole time, but here are the victims and here's where we put them.
The guy knew he wasn't doing that. At most, he might have a little grass once in a while, but certainly nothing else.
I know.
Getting that doped up, I wouldn't even gotten involved with him. I'd just take him home and I'll see you later.
In your personal opinion, though, do you think? I know. Trust me, I know, but I'm saying, doesn't he sound ridiculous as a person to say that he has no memory, but then he leaves places with the bodies? Like, it's
I missed too much of that. What?
Here's my only point: is when Roy says that, he loses all credibility with everything. I mean, when you say that kind of statement, you lose all credibility. And when you say the murders weren't planned, I feel like you lose credibility. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, you and Roy left the mountains in April, way before, Cindy was taken.
I want to stop that for a second. You said something really interesting then there about him losing credibility. What did you mean by that?
Well, I was painting an example of how Roy now, like after he had led police to the bodies of like Jackie and Leah, Roy's what he said to pen pals, what he said to me was, I was high on drugs. I don't remember the murders. I don't remember anything. Now, Bittaker had given me the police discovery, which showed that full statements that he remembered every single murder in detail. He led police to at least Jackie and Leah, where they were disposed of. And now, it's like 40 years later, and Norris is telling pen pals and people that he has no memory, he was on drugs. And I was saying to Larry, do you see how ridiculous he sounds? Do you see like how he loses all credibility? Like, I was trying to make that statement to him. Do you see how ridiculous he is? Or how ridiculous he sounds? Like, look at the facts. And then I was trying to use that as, an example of saying, do you see how ridiculous you sound when you say none of it was planned? That none of this is planned. And then that's why I said, well, you guys went up in the mountains in April. Okay, that is 2 months before, you guys even took Cindy, which was June 24th.
Yeah.
So you guys were already at the mountains, breaking that fire lock off, putting your own on, taking pictures up there in April, 2 months before Cindy. So I'm saying, I'm kind of giving the example of like, do you see how ridiculous he looks and sounds, and he loses all credibility? And then you're telling me, oh, there was no planning, but you're up there in April breaking the fire lock off. Do you see how you sound ridiculous? Do you see how you contradict yourself? Like, are you not seeing the parallels between the stories, how people are going to perceive this? I'm just pointing out the obvious facts to him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is that like? I mean, because that happens all the time with you. These guys, they diminish what they did and they reduce it down to. I mean, he's trying to like rationalize it down to something else.
Right.
And it sounds like that's happened to you a lot with all these serial killers. They don't, I mean, is there any of the ones that you talk to that just are completely unfiltered and just tell you exactly what they did, all the gory details and why they did it, and and just no holds barred? They just, this is what I did. This is, this is what I did. This is why I did it. This is what I felt doing it. And, and I have no shame whatsoever. This is who I am.
Most, in fact, do that, but it's usually in the cage. And Bittaker was one of those people. So when Bittaker's now on tape acting like a lamb, like, oh, what's the plan? I don't know why he did that. That's where you hear the frustration, because in the cage, he's a totally different person, comping to everything, saying, I got a thrill of it. I was getting sexually aroused from it. He's talking about this in the cage, and then he gets on the phone and he wants to act like something different. So you'll hear, this is the frustration where it comes from, is because I'll encounter the beast in the cage, and then the second I get on the phone, it's like they want to put that mask on. They want to turn into that lamb for public perception,
That's what's so great about your book, because I've read your book now, many times, and listening to him speak like this, where he's, I don't
right.
I know.
It's like you want to just, it's enraging.
Struggling. Yeah, it's just like, shut up.
It's enraging. It's like, we know what you did. You're not fooling us. Like, just own it. Like, you did it.
At this point, yeah.
At this point, why are you pretending to I don't know. I can't even imagine how frustrating that must have been for you. I was frustrated listening to
what I really want to point out is the last question I ask him in this video, where you hear me say, I'm not going to say the question, but you'll hear me ask it, and then he answers it differently than what he told me in the cage. And then I say back to him, Larry, and you can hear my tone, and then you can hear him state back. And that's when I clicked the line off, because I was just like, okay, if you're going to keep playing games on the phone, I'm cutting you off. Like, I'm done, because he had told me something very, very different in the cage.
Well, this was a phone call. I mean, did you have to tell him that was being recorded?
He knew.
He knew.
Yeah, he knew.
Yeah. So, like, like you said before, the cage visits were way more frank than the phone calls.
You'll hear in a lot of my interviews with the phone calls of them saying, come see me in the cage, or come talk to me in the cage, or come visit. That's the reason why, is there's no recording devices, there's no cameras, there's no nothing. Their attorneys come to visit them in those same cages. So nothing's recorded, nothing's overheard. They feel safe there. They're able to drop that mask and say whatever they want to say without, knowing they're not going to be recorded, with anything. They have the freedom of that. Yeah.
How soon before he died was that recording done?
This one was probably, it was 2019. So it was some places 2019, probably early 2019, before he died.
So right before he died, then.
Somewhere around there. I would say maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah.
Yeah. So he knew he was dying at this point?
Serial killers calling.
Okay. That's crazy.
It's so insane.
Just so people know, it's almost midnight. It's almost midnight where Laura
never
is.
Stopped. I have to put my phone in airplane mode just so the serial killers stop. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was, did he know he was dying at that point?
I think he did. I think during this tape, that's why I was going at him hard, is like, you're saying one thing, and it's like, we're at the end. It's like, stop with the games. Come on. Be real.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just no there's just no humanity in him there, to me. I mean, it's like you're going to be pretending that you're some innocent after everything you've done. I don't know. To me, you would think at the end you would just be like.
I mean, he was more.
I would say he did in the case. Sorry, another one. He did at the end. I will say after. I won't give away the last line, but
okay.
I'll go into more of that. But
okay. All right. Let's listen to more.
The fidelity on this is wacky.
I said, you guys went into mountains in April.
We did what?
You and Roy went up San Gabriel in April.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Why?
why? One reason was looking for a place to grow some grass. And I was familiar with that area, and so, okay, we'll take a drive out there. Over there is where I was in the youth camp. Used to run around here fighting bush fires. It was just a place I was familiar with, so I showed it to him, and he was thinking about growing some grass.
Right.
It also would serve as a place where subsequently happened. But then again, I could have found a place a lot closer to home. That one there was just, been there, done that. Okay, it's available. People act like we sat down in the morning before we went out and said, okay, we'll go here, we'll look for that, and we'll pick up that, we'll then do this, and then we'll go there. And, none of that. We just go out and driving around. Say, hey, there's a nice girl. We can pick her up or not. And it's like the last one. I'm taking her home. Innocently taking her home with no idea of doing anything at all. Next thing I know, Lord snaps her out of the hamstring seat into the back. Then he's going to blame it on me later. He has no control over his impulses. He's just going to do things. So Patty wouldn't do any good with him. Anyway.
I mean, I feel like you're blame shifting Roy right now.
Say that again. Who's blame shifting role?
Yeah.
Who, me?
Yeah.
What, I'm blaming him for him?
Yeah.
But if he, okay, let's say this. Let's say I didn't know him, or he wasn't hanging around him. I didn't do it before that, so why would I do it if he wasn't around later on? He was out there with Joe Jackson doing stuff and getting caught. I wasn't involved in anything. Why did you Joe? Because I wasn't available.
Did you ever hurt somebody before Roy?
Did I?
Yeah.
No.
Larry?
All right.
This call has been recorded.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to play games.
I mean,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. He had just told me he had victims. Prior to Roy, we were in the cage. So I go, did you ever hurt somebody before Roy? And he's like, no. That's why I was like, Larry. And he was like, Laura. And that's why I clicked the line. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not here to play games. You're here to
I'm
get
not playing
information.
games. Yeah. You're not going to sit in the cage and tell me that you've killed people 20 years prior to Roy. And then get on the phone and act like you're innocent and blame shift everything to Roy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we hear Joe Jackson's name made right out of his mouth.
We did. Yeah.
So
Did that surprise you that he said that?
No. Not at that point, no. Not because I had already read the discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
did you tell law enforcement about that?
Yeah.
What did they say?
Well, I told Tom Cray, who was the lead investigator prior, with Paul Bynum. He had called. He was one who was like, Lori, you're really onto something. Called Hermosa, tried to get the evidence out of Knott's Berry. Found it was already pushed to the sheriff's department, right? But he had passed the information along, and I just never heard anything.
You know what? I just got a new contact over there in the homicide department based upon the SUF thing because I talked to him the other day. And you talked to that guy too, right? You talked.
Well, I looked up the name of this officer or detective, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I had contacted him about Cindy and Andrea. I'm pretty sure it's the same one. Yeah.
Yeah. Louis.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how he's flip flops with you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like the lion and lamb thing.
Yeah.
But I would call him more like a friggin' monster and lamb. Because to me, lions have at least some pride and dignity. I don't think the only reason they kill is to feed themselves.
Right.
So
he's just putting the mask on for people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. And
Yeah.
I don't understand what his rationale in his brain, how it's like, because even when we've heard testimony when he was on the stand, he was more kind of smirky and creepy, and he was almost like enjoying telling the people in the courtroom what he did it and how he did it and why he did it. But the Joe Jackson thing is really interesting.
Right. He names them.
Yes.
Specifically.
And like I said before, we have a new contact in the homicide department now, and we're going to try to get him on the show too. And
Yeah.
we'll bring him on here. We should bring him on here because it'd be interesting, especially now with the Suff case.
Suff case, right.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to hear him because sounds like there could be some synergy there. And definitely.
And I would also like to ask him about the, 20 years Bittaker was active before Norris, because I have some Jane Does and missing persons from downtown LA where he was living at the Alexandria. I would love to pick his brain about.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just like, he's almost retired too. So he's been in for a while.
A veteran.
Yeah. So I think he's more apt to speak, hopefully more freely. All right. So the second part, the second recording, kind of tee this up again for us again and tell us when it was recorded, what was your goal in the conversation, because it's a totally different tone.
Totally different tone. Yeah.
Totally. You're really kind of super casual. You're really trying to kind of talk to him about his love life, his early love life.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, with serial killers, their encounters with women, whether it be their mother, their sister, their first rejection, their first girlfriend, I mean, that's always going to give us cues into their psychopathy. So this is me kind of exploring that with Bittaker and going into his first girlfriend predominantly, exploring that mostly. And as you'll see at the end of the tape, I discover something for the first time that I was really shocked by.
Yeah.
And there is a follow-up interview to this one. We'll save for later tape, which is, but yeah, there's a big discovery in this tape that's, I never knew until I started digging into, this first girlfriend.
Yeah. It's literally, you're like fishing.
Yeah.
You're literally just kind of throwing the bait out, pulling it in. Sometimes you don't get anything. Then you reel it up and you can hear it in your voice and you repeat the question, you cast it out again.
You can hear
it in. And then sometimes you get a little pull, and I can see how you pull on them.
You can literally hear me twirling the pole, just trying to get him up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's listen to this too.
Oh, I was going to ask you, did Mary ever wear a cross?
Oh, wait, I think I went too far.
When you get out here and you've got time to spare, you might look and see if you can find a map store that has USGS maps of the state. Since you're here, they probably would have them. And maybe
that's actually good.
Couple pages, huh?
Oh, I was going to ask you, did Mary ever wear a cross?
No, I bought her one. Apparently she was allergic to gold, though, so she couldn't wear it. Kind of weird. Did you answer my question about the maps?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
Okay.
My next question was, you said that Mary liked you. How did you know she liked you?
Oh, I didn't say I loved her, and one time she responded, I liked you a lot. And I did go to church with her one morning. So I'd never been to a Catholic church before, but so I was kind of unprepared for all the rituals, but she didn't seem to mind. So
pretty interesting. So wait, you had said to her, "I love you," and she said, "I like you a lot."
Just the one time. It wasn't particularly satisfying, but what can I do about it?
Do you wish she had said, "I love you" back?
Yeah, of course. Nothing wrong with can't think of much better than having a pretty girl say she loves you.
Right.
Probably wouldn't change our relationship in any way, but it would have been nice. Only got about 7 minutes left for sure.
Has any girl in your past relationships ever said I love you?
Any other relationships, the girls say that?
Yeah.
Possibly the one I tracked down in San Diego that was wanted to get out of the state, was pending arrest, as it were. And she might have said it somewhere along the line in letters or something, but I really don't remember. That relationship was pretty short.
What about when you were married in prison? Did your wife ever say it?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about her. I can't even remember
Who married him?
Yeah,
A religious woman?
Oh,
Yeah, I never, Hillary, who was working with one of the producers from the Toolbox Killer, she tracked her down and spoke to her. And she said she wanted nothing to do with her or the story or whatever. But I never got to speak to her personally. But yeah, she was a religious person going in there.
Okay, someone just going Bible study for.
I don't know, because
Condemned
then I
inmate.
heard Bittaker told me that she brought her teenage daughter in the cage with him,
Get out.
and there was a sexual complaint filed with the prison.
By her?
No, by like onlookers. Yeah, because the 13-year-old girl, the daughter, was in his lap.
Get the.
And I don't know, this is what I've been told. I have not seen the official report, but he told me that the complaint was filed because he was trying to like put his hands over his lap, move his lap, and it looked like the 13-year-old girl was moving in his lap. I don't know the story. I have not seen the report. That's what I've just been told by Bittaker.
How long were they married?
It was in the 80s for a couple of years.
Did he have conjugal visits with her as well?
No, death row has no conjugal visits.
Oh, they don't
No.
have the conjugal visits. Okay.
No. Of course not. How do serial killers kill? Strangulation.
right.
I
Sure.
know. Well,
That's
I
why
don't
they
know.
couldn't do it.
Sure. That makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
no.
interesting.
The closest they can get is a cage visit. Yeah.
You wear a cross,
hmm
and that first girlfriend wore a cross that he bought for her.
hmm
She couldn't wear
Yeah.
it, but he bought it for her. I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
I've been wearing a cross since I've been a teenager, by the way. So, it was really a coincidence. When I found out like he had bought her a cross and made the victims wear a cross, it was
Right. But I think maybe the first time when he saw you, I think that might have been a door for him.
I wonder, because he's not the only serial killer that has picked up on the cross. A lot of them have talked about the cross.
Like,
Yeah.
what do they say?
They just pick up on it. They notice, oh, you wear a cross.
Mm-hmm.
You Catholic? It's something a majority have picked up on. So I've actually continued wearing one only because the serial killers pick up on it so often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He talks about going into a Catholic church. I guess, was that the first time he'd ever been in the Catholic church?
That's what he said. Yeah.
Was that the first time he'd been in a church, period? Or was he?
That's what he said, which is interesting if you hear the later interview when he robbed the church too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're going to hear another piece where it circles back to his youth. It all goes back to the childhood.
Wow. All right, let's go back.
Ugh, this Mercury retrograde needs to go away.
This call is being recorded. It will
Pick up that, we'll then do this, and he was really good with that.
Ready before Roy?
No, I bought her one.
I was my next question was, you said that Mary liked you. How did you know she liked you?
Well, I would say I loved her, and one time she responded, I liked you a lot. And I did go to church with her one morning, and so I'd never been to a Catholic church before, but so I was kind of prepared for all the rituals, and she didn't seem to mind. So
She had said, I love you back.
yeah, of course. Nothing wrong with can't think of much better than having a pretty girl say she loves you. Probably wouldn't change our relationship in any way, but it would have been nice. Only got about 7 minutes left for sure.
Has any girl in your past relationships ever said I love you?
Any other relationships, the girls say that?
Yeah.
Sure.
What about when you were married in prison? Did your wife ever say it?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about her. I can't even remember who the hell did I marry. My memory's gone. I'm sure she did, but again, I knew so little about her also. It was a matter of, what is this, the only girl I'm liable to get from, the rest of my life? And she's nice, and she's, she seems to be interested in me and have a legitimate interest. And, it seemed like I loved her, but I couldn't really tell you what what constitutes real love and what's, sort of passionate or lustful or whatever. Yeah, and I just, barely knew anything about her, and she didn't last very long either, so.
Why is it that you didn't know too much about these girls you were dating and marrying? Like, is it because you didn't ask them about themselves, or what was it?
We had so minimal contact. It was, driving to school, you got two other girls in the back seat. She's sitting next to me up front and coming home the same way. And then normally after coming home, we'd go out and park somewhere and make out. I was not there giving her the third degree. Really wasn't interested. Love on.
You guys never talked on the phone or anything?
Say that again?
You guys never talked on the phone?
No. Other than possibly a message here and there, but we never spent time on the phone like you and I did. It was a kind of a weird relationship.
You guys never had conversations besides for just making out after school? There was no did you guys ever go on a date?
Never did much talking. I remember I wasn't really socialized. I didn't know how to behave. She was the first girlfriend, as it were, that I ever had. I had no experience at it. I didn't know how to do it. I just didn't know. Again, it's an aspect of my screwy life and upbringing. I just didn't know how to act like a normal person.
Well, you got close enough to make her your girlfriend, so how did you guys start talking?
Well, I was riding a bus home, and that bus, after school, that bus happened to stop at their school also. And I originally asked the girl that was pushing my hand away if she was possibly interested. And she said no, but my girlfriend doesn't have anybody. So I approached Marianne. So it was a really screwy setup.
You were making out with her friend too before her?
No, she said she had a boyfriend, so I immediately switched to Marianne. And it was only a good while later that I got together with her after she broke up with her boyfriend and would make out with her too after leaving Marianne at home.
Wow. And that didn't bother Marianne?
Well, she didn't know about it.
Oh.
It wasn't exactly a polite way thing to be doing or whatever, however you want to term it.
It's really difficult to listen to him. I mean, he sounds like he's trying so hard to be like a normal human being, or what he thinks would be like a normal response.
Well, I was just going to say, this is classic antisocial behavior, what you're witnessing. I mean, classic. This could be used in a classroom to show, the epitome of what it really is. I mean, you're hearing him say, no, there was no connection. No, I didn't really know them. No, we didn't really talk on the phone. Not like we do, because that's why I actually asked that question. But wait a minute, you're able to talk on the phone, but you're not with them. So you're not getting to know them. You're not connecting with them. You're not really intimate with them. You're not having any connection, any, interpersonal, anything transpire between the two of you. This is classic antisocial personality. They're not connecting. They're kind of removed from themselves and others. Is basically what you're seeing in this tape. Is he's so disconnected from even the women that he's dating, which you see, and marrying too.
Yeah,
He couldn't even remember who he married.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
He had more memories from his high school days than he did with his marriage to
Right.
this woman for 2 years.
Couldn't you
Yeah.
remember her name? Yeah.
But he does remember the murders very clearly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Right.
That's the part.
To a
that's very-
pin, like everything, the
Right.
body. Yep.
Every detail.
Mhm.
That
Every
he
detail.
remembers. I just
Yeah.
this whole demure, like trying to be like,
Mhm.
Laura, I liked her. We were just like, it's so infuriating because
Yeah.
we know what he did, and those poor girls and those poor victims and their families.
Mhm.
It's infuriating, and you almost don't want to listen to him. But in the reason
But like
we're
I was
doing this,
saying, it's important because this is your, microscope into antisocial personality. This
Absolutely.
is the perfect tape to hear it. You're hearing the way he talks about his wife, former girlfriends. I mean, this is the epitome of antisocial personality. You're getting to hear it firsthand. And it's such a classic, case of it, what you're
Mhm.
hearing right here.
Did you realize that at the moment, or was it
Yeah.
until after you did? So you
I
in the
did.
moment-
I sent it off to, Alan, John. I was like, you got to hear this. Use it for your classes, training, because it's just the perfect tape to show what antisocial personality is.
What did
know.
they say when they heard it?
Oh yeah. They were like classic.
Hmm.
There's no attachment, there's no connection, there's no intimacy. It's like, he's looking at them as almost if they're pets. Yeah, she was, I met her on the bus, it was like, yeah, it was whatever. Oh, what was my wife's name? It's classic.
How old was he at this time when the girlfriend on the bus and stuff?
The girlfriend was, high school years. That was 16. And then the wife was in, God, he would have been in his 40s in the 80s.
Well, specifically just because during his teenage years, didn't he do something when he was a teenager too? Didn't he harm somebody?
Yep. That was his first kill.
And was it before this period?
Right after her.
Right after her.
so he was like
Mhm.
16, 17 when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Interesting how he
Yeah.
just kind of.
And no, I have spoken to the first girlfriend firsthand too.
What did she say?
This has been a dark secret her whole life, dating a serial killer. She's very ashamed of it, even though it was back in the 1950s.
I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she, he brought her up to San Gabriel Mountains on dates.
Yeah.
It's haunting her. But it's definitely, looking at the crimes and looking at her, it's an important factor, making him wear the cross. I mean, and Alan said that, these crimes were an aspect of him getting, revenge on his mother and his ex-girlfriend, which is very true.
Oh, I want to know what I wanted to say about when he was a teenager, because he goes, I didn't know how to act, I didn't, because of my screwed up life and stuff like that. And to me, it's just like, no 16-year-old boy knows how to act in front of a girl at that
No.
point, especially if it's one of his first, relationship
Right.
experiences. So it's like, and then what most young teenage boys do is they They just look at things that they've read or they've seen in movies to kind of, or if they have an older sibling, they can see how they act to it. He didn't have any of that, but we all know how to act, even if we're not taught how to act.
Right.
Just by watching other people. I mean, I'm sure he, like anything. I mean, you watch other people how they hold hands and how they're intimate and stuff like that. So to me, it was like a cop out. It was an immediate cop out when I heard that.
Total cop out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like,
100.
didn't know, and I was raised poorly.
It's
and
infuriating to listen to him.
It
It
is.
really is, because you're just like.
But I will say, I mean, it is a perfect example of antisocial personality. And what you're going to see in the next part is, once you keep going through that bullshit or unwrapping that onion, as I call it, you do get to a part where you're like, whoa, I discovered something.
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay.
And you're going to hear in the next part. Yeah.
Thing you're doing or whatever, however you want to term it. But it wasn't really harmful, so what the hell?
Now, did you and Marianne ever go on dates anywhere?
Went to a movie where I kissed her for the first time. We went swimming down at the amusement park down in Long Beach once. And I went to church with her once. It's the only sort of dates we ever had. Oh, when I would go, she was taking some sort of dancing class. And I told her mother I'll just pick her up instead of you having to go out there. So I would see her on those occasions also. Once a week. It was a whole bizarre setup.
Did you ever, go to her house?
I was over there once or twice, but I didn't stick around to really visit. I had my dad drive her over to my house one night. She had some class assignment, and didn't know some certain data, and I happened to have a whole set of Encyclopedia Britannicas, whole closet full of other books. So I brought her over, and we looked. I didn't happen to have anything, so I started making out again that I set up my tape recorder to record what we were doing. So that was kind of interesting.
You've never told me that.
What were you going to say?
That was it.
Yeah.
That's why you dig. That's why you dig. Teenage years, he had a tape recorder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I heard that the first time, I'm like,
I was shocked.
Yeah, I'm stunned, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So it goes way back.
So
it goes down to his childhood years. Yeah.
He started recording people that young.
Yep.
and I think when he talks about it, he records, and you're asking me, well, you guys are just making out, so you're just recording you guys making out?
You see me dig more. I go slow. There is a part 2 to this tape, which is actually my favorite interview, probably with Bittaker, which we can play, next week. But you hear me dig more into this because I'm like, whoa. The tape recorder comes back into teenage years, which I did not know. I thought this was, in his late 30s. He thought, I'm going to record this. So when he said he had it with a girlfriend from high school, I was shocked. I was really shocked. And you hear me keep asking questions, but not trying to seem shocked. Just being like, oh, you had a tape recorder. What kind of things did you record? Where did you record? Because I'm trying to dig into his psyche, but not let him know in an aspect. I said, we'll do the real from it. Yeah. And you'll hear that.
You're skirting around the issue, but you're actually,
right.
Revealing it. Okay, let's see where it is.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, just hadn't
Wow.
I was probably the only kid in the whole school that had his own tape recorder that I bought myself from proceeds of other newspapers.
So the tape recording goes all the way back to when you were much younger. I didn't realize it went that far back. I said I didn't realize the tape recorder went that far back for you.
I when did I get that? What grade? High school sometime, I don't remember exactly when. It was just something I happened to want for some reason, and I got it. And of course, that led to stealing all sorts of pre-recorded tapes and records that I had to go to a neighbor's house to play and record there because we didn't have a player that would play normal 45 records in those days. Well, there's a lot of weird things that happened.
How old were you when you got your first tape recorder?
I only had one. That was in high school sometime. And it's hard for me to put dates on things because I can't relate them to anything that might happen.
No, that's fine. Teenage years, just say teenage years. That works.
Hmm?
I said no, just say like teenage years. I don't remember the age, but I was a teenager.
Yeah, somewhere along in there. If I thought about it for a good while, I might be able to pin it down a little more. But there's so little significant events along my life that I can't pin them down and relate them to the time scale. That's another symptom of how screwed up my life was.
Is there any, like, what else did you record? I mean, you recorded her coming over, you guys making out.
That was just one time. The rest of it was virtually all just recording music so I could play it anytime I wanted. There was two brothers. It was on a TV show, they're famous singers. And I would hook it up to the TV and record those songs that they were using to do. I can't remember their name though. They were teenage idols did music.
Did when you recorded you and Mary, did she know that you were recording?
She didn't know while I was doing it. No, I told her about it afterwards. But, it was no big thing.
Yeah. No, much of what.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
What is that behavior if you record someone without them knowing in that kind of situation? What is that?
Paraphilia.
Is that like a stepping stone to murdering people?
Paraphilia isn't necessarily a stepping stone into murder, but
It's
it's
deviant.
sexual. It's deviant. Exactly.
So it's like
Exactly.
it's like the one of the steps to deviant behavior.
Right. And for him, clearly sexually deviant behavior.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure he recorded her a lot more than
He says in the tape, them making out, but I'm sure,
Yeah.
there
He's
was
not telling you that. Yeah, he's not telling you the truth.
You're right.
Right. There's only like two minutes left. So.
Mm-hmm.
There is that.
Yeah. Did you ever play it back afterwards?
I played it back. There was just so little on it, I didn't bother to even keep it, I don't think.
It's so frustrating.
Not much talking while you're making out.
Right. Why did you want to record it?
I don't know. It's just I had the recorder. Why not use it? See maybe what it sounds like. I'll tell them. I even took it to church one night and recorded certain things going on there, and the people didn't know I was just recording it. It's just, I come up with some screwy ideas along the line on all sorts of things.
Well, I mean, like, what was the feeling? Like, how did you feel when you were recording? Not even just you guys making out. I'm talking about when you went into the church and recorded. Like, what did you feel? What were you feeling when you recorded?
Nothing. I was already at church and happened to mention somebody. I had a recorder, one of the leaders. How about I'll go home and get my recorder and we'll hide the microphone here, machine behind the couch, and just record it for a few minutes and see what people say. On playing it back, it was no big thing. It was a spur of the moment. I kind of run home and run back with the recorder. I got there early the first time.
Was it like
so many of these things, like the crimes later? So much of it is unprepared. It was unplanned. spur of the moment ideas would come up, and I'd go do it.
It's just so fascinating with the tape recording. Like, there must have been some sort of like, do you think there was like a thrill to it? Like you're recording, someone doesn't know.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
This was something to do that was unusual, and the people might enjoy, hearing their idle comments to each other played back to them. No goal, no motive really involved. It just was just spur of the moment thought.
Yeah, there's only like 10 seconds left. So I can't imagine if he was in his heyday now with all the types of recording devices. That van of his probably would have been like a television studio.
I have a recording of him very early on, and it's me asking him about the audio recordings and him saying, if tape recorders were available when I was active, I would have everything tape recorded. Tape, audio, video, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
He fully acknowledges that. Yeah.
It's just amazing how
young it starts.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he was just kind of secretly recording people.
Right.
That's so creepy.
I mean, it's just like, you hear about this stuff, then like these guys walk around in Walmart with, that are recording people or in gyms. It's happening a lot in gyms now.
Yeah.
With their phones, because everybody's got a TV studio, like a camera and audio recording on their phone.
I know. That's what's so scary, that there are people like this out there.
Yeah.
Right. And Bittaker even said to me once, could you imagine what it would have been like if I had Uber in my day?
Right.
Yeah.
I know. I told you what happened. Uber came to pick me up when Rob was gone for something. And this guy pulls up in a white van. I swear to God, an Uber white van. I was like, I canceled it. I'm like, forget it. I'm not getting in a white van with this guy. Who does Uber in a white van? But it is. It's like the most ridiculous thing if you think about it. Like,
yeah,
you're going to get in a car with a stranger. We're not supposed to get in cars with strangers.
I know.
And now we paid to do it.
Right.
We paid to do it. You're right.
I mean,
I know everybody. I always say to people, they're like, why did these girls get, hitchhike into vans and cars? And I'm like, you have to understand, back then it was Uber for us. We all do it now. It's the same as like hitchhiking back then. We're doing the same thing with Uber.
Everyone hitchhiked. I mean, I never hitchhiked, but that was before my time. But I mean, we heard stories of like my aunt used to hitchhike all the time.
Right. It was normal back then. Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
What was it? It was one other thing that escaped me when he was talking about. It was no big deal, and I thought that was interesting. And once again,
nothing's a big deal to him.
Yeah, he just downplays all the
everything. Right. Right.
I just don't. But yeah, it's like that first step of deviant behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we were kids, we had tape recorders, but we'd make goofy tapes. We weren't recording.
Well, the
secretly.
next tape, I actually talked to him about having a tape recorder as a kid too, and that was our next conversation. Is me saying to him, I had a tape recorder too, but we were doing very different things with the tape recorder.
Yeah, I mean, people, you're singing into it, you're making goofy songs.
Right, but this was all of this.
It's usually you and your friends.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What he was doing was secretive, and he was getting a thrill from it.
As a teenager, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And it's ironic because the cassette tape is what got him caught.
Yeah. And he started going into houses at 12 years old. He started like the hot prowl, as they called it, or the creepers or whatever. They went into the houses. Bittaker was doing that at 12, breaking into homes. And
what was he taking out of the homes?
Random stuff. Like, even just like when he talked about taking the church bells, like he would tell me at 12, he tried to take these, what are the stuff that holds the curtains? The tassels that like hold the curtains.
Yes, the tassel, yeah.
12 years old. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like made no sense at all. Yeah.
Anything else did he take? Like, would you go take women's garments or anything?
Yeah, like everything and everything. Like he would steal lamps, curtains, like women's garments. I asked him if he ever touched a woman, like peeped through the windows. There's actually a tape coming up I'll give you guys where he does say he peeped on women. And he told me, you know, he went into one household where he actually ran his finger down the woman's breast and she woke up. She was sleeping. And she woke up and I was like, what did she do? And he goes, she was startled and she was like, get out. And he was like, I just ran out. Yeah.
How old was he then?
These are preteen years. Preteen
So
years.
like 11, 10.
11, 12, 13 teenage years. Yeah. He's doing all this hot prowl stuff. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's creepy.
See,
Yeah,
what's weird is he has no sexual crimes on his record until, you know, these murders. So I did a deep dive because I was like, no sexual deviant pops up at 38, right? I did find one record. This is the only record of him being a sexual deviant. It was after he got out of prison, he went to work at a dentist, right? He got fired for sexual deviant behavior from this dentist shop, but it was never reported to the police, but there was only one report of it. So there was one documented case of his sexual, you know, proclivities, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But the police never found it in his 20s.
Wow. Well, once again, fascinating work, Laura. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep like it all together while you're talking to them like this. I mean, it's just because
A
it's
lot of
just like,
patience.
You have a lot of patience.
amazing patience.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
mean, like,
patience.
Especially when they're just being bullshit on the phone when
Right.
they just said something different in the image. Right.
no, just the amount of morass that you have to sculpt through in order to get these little nuggets. Like, you know, it's funny because when I before we did it, I was just kind of cleaning up the audio before we did this. And so I listened to both of them. And, you know, the first one was, you know, it was more kind of like compelling to me. Okay. And then the second one, I was listening to it and I was just kind of scanning through it. And I'm like, well, he's really not saying anything. There's really nothing. But then as we go through and you point out these signposts of the psychopathy and the antisocial behavior, it just now it's like now I can't not hear it. I can't hear it.
Right.
Can't
The
unhear
second
it.
tape to me is like it reveals the most. Like
Yes.
the most. Because you're like, oh my God, this tracks back to his teenage years. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. All
But
right.
it's
Well, we're
about
excited to hear
finding
the
those-
rest of these tapes next week. So
Yeah.
get them to us and then we can listen to them and analyze this again.
Definitely.
Once again, fascinating work.
Thanks,
Fascinating work.
Laura.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.